Hello, today I will be reviewing Teaching with Poverty in Mind, What Being Poor Does to Kids' Brains and What Schools Can Do About It, by Eric Jensen. In the introduction, Eric Jensen outlines his three-pronged approach to talking about poverty in education. The first prong is understanding what poverty is and how it affects students. The second prong is understanding how schools with high numbers of students below the poverty line have made changes that have given students hope and helped them succeed. The final part of Jensen's approach is to get his audience to think about ways they can improve their own school for low socioeconomic status or low SES students. Those three prongs are Jensen's approach, but not his format. Those three topics are blended together in each chapter. Jensen's format differs slightly depending on which chapter you're talking about. The basic outline of how Chapter 2 through 5 are formatted is shown on the screen. Chapter 1 and 6 are organized differently from the rest. Chapter 1 is a basic overview of poverty, and I will discuss Chapter 6 towards the end of this book review. The other chapters start out by talking about Chris Hawkins, a history teacher that is only 6 years away from retirement. Then Jensen introduces a topic and lays out what research has been done on that topic. Then he turns to practical steps that teachers and administrators can take to address the topic in their schools. Chapter 3 and 4 include another component for each topic. In those chapters, Jensen includes stories of schools that have implemented some of the action steps he talks about. As mentioned earlier, every chapter of the book begins with a few paragraphs about Chris Hawkins. As one reads the book, they get to watch Chris Hawkins progress from a disgruntled teacher counting down the days till retirement into a dynamic educator who's trying to improve every day. Mr. Hawkins changes as he reads each chapter of Teaching with Poverty in Mind. He gains hope in the idea that he can make a positive impact on low SES students. Jensen has three main claims. His first claim is chronic exposure to poverty causes the brain to physically change in a detrimental manner. Second, Jensen believes the brain can be changed so that poor children can experience success. Lastly, Jensen claims certain key factors of academic success are more effective than other factors in helping low SES students improve. Jensen's first claim, dealing with poverty in the brain, is largely covered in Chapter 1. In this chapter, Jensen goes over copious amounts of research that supports the link between poverty and stunted cognitive development. About midway through the chapter, he covers the 5 systems of the brain that are most important to learning. These systems deal with several things, to name a few: decision-making, language, processing text, and organization. Jensen's second claim about positive experiences in the brain can really be summed up about or in a section where he talks about Brazilian street vendors who could do math for their job but had trouble working out the same math problem in a classroom setting. The study shows how learning is context-specific. Jensen believes educators should spend time getting to know their students and what they do outside the classroom. Often students have some basic skills and just need help learning how to use those skills in a classroom. Jensen's third claim about the key factors that are important to keep in mind when helping low SES students achieve are summed up in an acronym that he uses in both Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. The acronym is SHARE. In Chapter 4, Jensen covers school-wide factors with the SHARE acronym on the left, and then in Chapter 5, he focuses on specific factors for teachers in their own classrooms using the SHARE acronym that I have written out on the right. I enjoyed reading this book. It covers a lot in less than 200 pages, Eric Jensen does a good job of saying what he has to say without a lot of fluff. Chapter 6 was very interesting in regards to classroom management. The chapter is about the typical class day of Chris Hawkins, the teacher discussed at the beginning of all the other chapters. By chapter 6, Chris Hawkins has become an amazing educator. How he runs his classroom is the opposite of every stereotype associated with classroom management. This slide is a synopsis of Mr. Hawkins' typical schedule for a class. Most people, when they think about classroom management, think about conserving time by cutting out anything besides content. However, Mr. Hawkins makes time for building relationships with the students and giving them hope that they can reach their dreams. He knows that by doing this, he can actually save time because it leads to students respecting him and wanting to succeed in his class. He also saves time by giving students responsibilities like letting them take attendance within their small groups. I do have a few criticisms of the book. Jensen doesn't talk a lot about problems that are unique to rural poverty. Some of the issues that he tries to address in the book becomes more difficult when the school population is spread across a large geographical area, and I would have wished that he would have expounded upon the unique situations that arise from rural areas that are impoverished. However, my bigger problem with the book is that it's mostly geared towards administrators. This is not really a problem with the actual content of the book, but it was frustrating to read a lot of things that I could not implement by myself as a future teacher. Large chunks of the action steps were just ideas that I could pass on to administrators. I was left wanting more ideas that I could implement in my future classroom.